I'm just reminded as I listen to this, I do think we have some of the most fun here in this committee in terms of being able to be updated on what is happening with the technologies out there that are really making a difference. Not only making a difference from the access to energy, the affordability, but what we're doing to advance measures that truly are more clean. I don't know why it should be so revolutionary to think that this is all about management, but I've heard each of you, Dr. Friedman, you articulated it very clearly, and then Mr. Goff, I think you were the one that followed on, or maybe it was Mr. Haryu that said, you know, we're not dealing with it's not a carbon-constrained world, but rather a world of carbon management. And how we manage this in different ways is what is happening out there in your world that is really starting to make some considerable difference. And whether it's the deployment with what you have out there at Petronova in Texas, or what's coming on with the Tundra project, or what you're doing with the net power, it's managing in different ways, but there's a recognition that you don't have the same assets in every location. And Ms. Lagano, you mentioned that the impact of location is key. I'm curious about the ambient temperature. I hadn't thought about things like that. I think about where you have stuff, geologic areas underground that you can utilize, but it's just, again, a reminder that managing is going to look different depending on where you are. So we get this mindset back here in Washington that if we can just check off on a series of steps that you can take, and we're going to all be utilizing the same process, and it's going to work everywhere, just demonstrates that we're not the scientists and the engineers, you all, and we need to be listening to you. So, Ms. Lagano, you've identified some things that I think are important for us to keep in mind, the imperative of 45Q, and many of you have mentioned that, tax credits, the loan guarantees, those are some of the things that, all right, we can help to facilitate. Oftentimes what we realize is that the government is in the way of some of the important opportunities because we put, whether it's regulatory impediments in your way, permitting issues are in the way, just the economic challenges. So can those of you who have been working to really get things from beyond the drawing room really out to application, Mr. Goff, Mr. Haryu, Ms. Lagano, and Mr. Jackson as well at Oxy, what do we need to be doing to clear the path of impediments and from the regulatory side, but also some of the economic challenges that you face that we can be helpful on the federal level? And I don't mean to limit it to just the four of you, all can jump in, but please go ahead, whoever wants to jump. Ms. Lagano.
I'll start, yes, thank you. I think what we can do is that assisting technology providers to drive capital costs lower, right? As we do a project and we learn from, for example, NRG's experience scaling up, how can we use that for the next project to reduce costs and drive ultimately the cost of delivered CO2 down?
And how do you share that with others so that they gain the benefit of your taking the first step?
Yeah, so in working closely with the DOE, we are providing information to them regularly about the challenges that we face and we solve. And we do that in a cooperative environment and a collaborative environment with the DOE so that the benefit of our experiences can be used for the next generation of technology and, frankly, to enhance our own existing project.
Others? Yes. Mr. Jackson?
Thank you very much. I think I can speak to that and appreciate those comments. You know, for us, 45Q was certainly a significant step. I think, you know, not only the enhancements that were created out of 45Q, but the longevity created investable projects, both for technology and ultimately CCUS. I think, you know, we agree that R&D and the technology, and especially from the capture, can do a lot to promote the available low-cost supply of CO2 that we can ultimately use in a productive way. Beyond that, we think R&D around utilization is important. So today, we talk mostly about enhanced oil recovery, but I think for this to collectively work, more utilization opportunities should exist. And so-
Outside of EOR.
Exactly. And ultimately, what that does is create not only the source, but the sink, as we've described it, which enables infrastructure. And so for us, we look today, and we believe there are many commercial projects that are ready to go with available technology. We're looking at projects in the Midwest with ethanol, a very low cost to capture. And really, the enabling source will be infrastructure. So again, lowering cost, increasing utilization, but ultimately creating this infrastructure for us, we foresee very near-term capabilities with CCUS at large scale.
Others? Mr. Haryu?
Yes, thank you. I would certainly concur with preceding remarks. But one thing that we see is that under today's guidance, the 45Q credit can be challenging for some to claim, and we're encouraged by the solicitation of comments that IRS has recently announced, and we're hopeful that some malleability in terms of the means by which one would document secure geologic storage can come to the table.
Okay, good to know. Mr. Goff?
We have two things to add here. One of the reasons we think 45Q is such a critical incentive is it allows you to learn by doing, and by building 2 or 3 of the same technology, in a row, you really can drive down capital costs that then allow you to build that without that incentive anywhere in the world. And then secondly, on Richard's point on infrastructure, the way we view the carbon capture industry, what's good for one technology is good for everyone else. Anytime someone builds a carbon pipeline or has a carbon offtake, that's somewhere where we look to develop a project. So anything that we can do to develop more carbon projects, to build more carbon pipelines, we currently have 5,000 miles of carbon pipelines, we need more, then it helps us build projects on top of that and develop an entirely new industry around using carbon.
Dr. Friedman?
Thank you. If I may add, first, quickly to underscore 2 of the points that have been made. One of them is, again, on this infrastructure issue. We could get about 40 million tons of carbon dioxide underground today if the pipelines existed, and they don't. Second is capital treatments. That's really essential. These are big capital projects, and it's hard to get your return on these things. But it doesn't just have to be something like the 45Q tax credits. There's ITCs. There's economic opportunity zones. There's accelerated depreciation. There's lots of tools that could be used potentially to improve the capital profile of projects like this and help get more of them into market. The one I would add to that, though, is that we have a few bills already floating around Congress that can deal with some of these things. The Use It Act is the most obvious of these in terms of helping to accelerate pipeline deployment. We have Senator Smith's Clean Energy Standard that was put on with Representative Lujon. Those are all things that can really substantively contribute to getting this technology to market, and it's entirely, in my mind, the cost and the technologies are already in a pretty good place. They certainly could be better, but it's really about finance now. These projects can't be financed readily, and that's where the policy support will prove most important.